The Scoop Sports Network rolls on. It's our weekly visit. Maybe it becomes a daily visit. I don't know. Maybe it becomes twice a day, 3 times. I don't know what we're going to do with this, but we do like to have a lot of fun with Randy Karraker. I'm Dan McLaughlin. And Randy, hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Happy holidays to you and yours.
Danny Mac, thank you. Same to you. Yeah, everything was great. And the sport just keeps rolling on. We got a ton of stuff to talk about.
Let's start with the Blues last night. So now under Jim Montgomery, they have 3 wins. They've accumulated 7 out of a possible 8 points. I think part of it is that you get a new coach in and you get the bump from that. It just seems like generally in sports, that's going to happen. Not all the times, but generally it seems like that's the case. But he is changing up a lot, and you see that they're putting the puck on the net. You see that they're creating more scoring chances. And maybe it's an indictment on Drew Bannister a little bit when players afterwards come out and say, well, we're having fun. I guess they weren't having fun before, that it was, a situation that just wasn't working out. But you can tell that Jim Montgomery's got his fingerprints all over this moving forward, and he's done a hell of a job so far.
Yeah, and when we talked a couple of weeks ago, we talked about how this before they hired Montgomery, how he's a difference maker. I thought it was interesting in the press conference when they hired Montgomery. Doug Armstrong talked about the fact that Bannister was making mistakes that a young coach makes. And Jeremy Rutherford had a really good piece in The Athletic talking about what Montgomery is doing to make the Blues better. And you can see it on the bench, the communication, the attention to detail, like you mentioned, just being more aggressive in getting shots off and playing a better, more sound defensive game. It's things that teams that are coached by a veteran coach do. And I think the Blues have a great one here, and I'll be really interested to see, especially with the young guys that are here. And I still think Jordan Kyrou has a lot of meat left on the bone in terms of getting to be a better player. Holloway is playing better. A couple of games that Broberg has played for Jim Montgomery, he's played really well. But I have a feeling that we're going to see young players really ascend here in St. Louis.
I think the question now becomes, and I know it's really early and they're in a tough stretch of games here with a 9-day road trip, but when you get to Christmas time, and let's say the first of the year, is it a playoff team? And by all indications with what he's done, again, I realize this is really early, but we had talked to ownership. We had talked to Doug Armstrong and kind of put him on the spot and said, has the timetable moved up to be a playoff team? I think you have to start looking at that, at least trying to squeeze in and saying, you know what? Yeah, it's going to be long-term. We gave him a 5-year deal. It's going to be really good. And we're going to have young players that graduate to being veteran players, and we're going to be a better team. We know that's coming, but in the immediate, is it a playoff team? And I don't know why you'd sell yourself short. I think you have to look at it in those terms.
Yeah, if we go back to the first part of the season, Doug Armstrong told us, I have expectations that we are going to be a good team and at least battle for a playoff spot. I have to think that they believe that Holloway and Broberg are even better than they thought they were going to be. I think, Dan, the key is going to be the older players being able to sustain over the course of the season. Obviously, Letty already got hurt. Can Ryan Sue do what he's done already? Can Braden Shen maintain what he's done? Can Faksa continue to play the way that he has? Especially, and the reason that I brought up Suter is because of all of the minutes he played. Usually, defensemen don't have much trouble, but man, you get on the other side of third, and it's for forwards. And I would think that would be the biggest concern. Like I said, I think Kyrou is going to be better. I think that a guy like Thomas has established himself as a really good NHL player. Buchnevich plays his best hockey for Jim Montgomery. I think there are a lot of positives to be drawn from the younger guys, but I really think it's going to come down to how the veteran forwards perform down the stretch, and obviously the health of the goalies. Hofer was terrific against Winnipeg. We've seen how good Jordan Binnington is. Jordan Binnington, by the way, is going to be in the 4-team tournament in February. He is going to be Canada's probably #1 goalie. So the Blues have all the goaltending you need if it's healthy.
All right, so this time next week, the winter meetings will be taking place with Major League Baseball. I'll put you on the spot. Is Nolan Arenado a member of the Cardinals this time next week? What do you think?
I think he is at this time next week. Dan, a lot of this is going to come down to 2 things. Number one, where does Bregman sign and where does Soto sign? And as we speak right now, it appears as if it's the Mets, the Red Sox, and maybe the Yankees sitting out there on the outskirts for Juan Soto. But if Houston needs a third baseman, I can see them coming after the Cardinals and Nolan Arenado. They still want to be really good. If the Yankees lose Soto, I could see them coming after Nolan Arenado. I would think that Toronto would have a chance to come after him, and Seattle is after Bregman. If Seattle doesn't get Alex Bregman, their third base situation is horrific. So I could see Seattle, which is a team that should be able to win, coming after Nolan Arenado. And Arenado's made it pretty clear he wants to go to it as a chance to win. So I would think that like a team like Seattle would be dicey. A team like the Mets, a team like Houston, a team like the Yankees, the Dodgers, I think that they would all be in play. And if he's willing to go to the city, then I would think that there's a really good chance that he would get traded. And oh, by the way, I think it's a good move on the part of the Cardinals if they can get somebody to pick up that $74 million over the next 3 years. The Cardinals, I don't think, Dan, tell me what you think. I don't think they're going to be good enough during the time that Nolan Arenado is under contract to make him worth their while.
I'm not sure. I think, you got 3 years left, right? So in those 3 years, you would hope for the development of a Jordan Walker. You hope for development of Nolan Gorman. We talked about it last week. Those are the two guys that you're really counting on. At that point is, Weatherholt coming up and making an impact with this team. You probably be able to have an idea of your TV situation better in terms of where you're at financially. So do you go out and dip your toes into the water of free agency? So I'm not sure. I think it could happen, but here's the interesting thing though with Arenado. I found it really interesting. He says, I'm open to playing first base. And I'm thinking to myself, if I'm a team that is trading for Nolan Arenado, I want him at third base. He's one of the best third basemen that's ever played defensively. And so I understand what he's trying to do and to make this work for whatever team may want to get him. But I sat there and I heard that. I'm thinking, what? Why would you do that? If you're a team trading for Nolan Arenado, you're getting the full package, meaning that you hope he can get back to where he was a couple of years ago offensively. Now, typically at his age, numbers do decline, but defensively, he still was really good. I don't know what you thought about that. I just thought it was kind of odd, and it shows to me that a guy that probably wants to get out.
He is definitely in decline. There's no doubt about that. And if you have a guy that has a first baseman, has 16 homers and a 780 OPS, 770 OPS, that's not going to get it done. Your first baseman needs to provide more than that. You're 100% right, because his defense third will save a ton of runs, and you can get by with a third baseman that delivers that kind of power. Maybe he can get back to 20 home doubles, be a 40 extra base hit guy. But I'm with you. If I'm getting Nolan Arenado, I'm not getting him to play first base. As a matter of fact, if you acquire Arenado, and we would assume that he wouldn't be a full-time first baseman, but let's just put it in this perspective. If you're another team, would you rather get Arenado to play first part-time for 74 over 3, or sign Paul Goldschmidt for 1 year and $12 million to play first base?
Exactly.
I'd rather have Goldie. I'd rather have Goldie's bat at first base.
Absolutely. Now, it was it was interesting. I appreciate what Rob Manfred has done with the rules of the game. I think speeding up the game, the pitch clock. I don't necessarily like the runner starting at second in extra innings, but it serves a purpose. It doesn't sway me one way or another to go crazy on it. It is what it is. But this one does, about having the golden at bat. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
So essentially, for people that don't know, you could have at any, you're in the ninth inning and Pete Kozma's up for the Yankees and the game's on the line. You say, well, no. We're going to use Juan Soto here, or we're going to use Aaron Judge, and we're going to cash in that one at bat to go for it. That can't happen, Randy. I'm sorry.
No.
I know there's some people that may like it and like thinking outside the box, and I'm not one of those old guys that says we shouldn't change the game. I'm okay with doing some things to enhance the quality of the game. So I'm not opposed to rule changes or looking at different things that need to be done. This one, though, I'm out on 100%. I don't think it makes any sense.
No, I don't. And you think about it, how, number one, that would mess around with the history of the game. And is it fair for a team that spends a lot of money on a lineup? Let's take a look at the Dodgers, who have Betts and Freeman, Ohtani, and Will Smith. And then the Giants have maybe one good hitter. Is it fair for a team that builds their lineup and spends a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort to build a great lineup up and down 1-9? Is it fair for them to have another team that has one good hitter and they can plug that hitter in at the number 8 spot in a one-run game in the 9th inning? I don't think that's fair. I don't think that presents, and I know that Manfred talks about an even playing field. That doesn't provide an even playing field. Hey, we can use the Cardinals as an example. Okay, this coming season, right now, based upon what players have done recently, Wilson Contreras could be a hitter for Victor Scott II in the 9-hole. Well, if you're playing the Dodgers, who have all of these hitters making all this money, is that fair competitively? I don't think it is.
I don't think so either. And I had so many questions about this. So Aaron Judge comes up with the bases loaded and strikes out. Does he get a chance then to come up again?
Right. Yeah. Good question.
I don't think it's the right way to do it. Here's the other look at it too is if let's say the Yankees, let's say Aaron Judge is out of the game and Juan Soto is their main bat. How do you, from the opposition's point of view, how do you start the inning? Knowing that Soto could come up twice. Mm-hmm. So do you use a lefty, 3-batter minimum? He's going to face some righties, which you normally wouldn't want to do in that spot. So there's some things to kind of think of outside the box with that too.
Yeah, it's video game stuff that they're coming up with. And I'm sure that somebody presented this to Rob Manfred, but hopefully more reasonable heads will prevail. What would you think of a golden runner, though? Okay, so put yourself in the Cardinals' shoes again. You have... let's just say Fermin or somebody that runs faster than Contreras. Contreras leads off an inning with a double, okay? And you want to be able to score a run. You can plug a runner in at second and then Contreras back. I would be more in line with that, but I would love it. But I think that would be a more reasonable strategic play than the gold bat.
Well, I can tell you this. I would carry Victor Scott on my roster if that was the case.
There you go. Let's say
roster. You'd have to carry one of those guys.
Right. I was looking up last night, and we both know Herb Washington. Herb Washington was he was a designated runner with the A's in 73 and 74. In 74, he played 92 games and didn't have an at-bat. I think in his career, he scored something like 32 runs and had 33 stolen bases and never had an at-bat. That's what you're talking about with Golden Runner.
Absolutely. That's something I would look at. All right, let's switch gears. Missouri finishes up. Luther Burden is, I think, 4th in receptions in the history of Missouri football, which it doesn't seem like that, Randy. I think maybe we put too much stock into that. Every time that Brady Cook touched the football, some way, somehow, it had to be in Luther Burden's hands, which is unreasonable. And I'm one of those people. I was like, man, just use him in any kind of way. Put him in the slot, put him in the backfield, use him on sweep. I don't care how you get him the ball, but just get him the ball. But the Luther Burden era will go down as, I think, significant. Now, it's going to be dependent on the next few years and the kind of players that they get in. But having these local kids say that, yeah, I'm a preeminent player, I'm a first-round pick, and I can go to Mizzou, have a really good career, and go be a first-round pick in the NFL, a skill position player. I think that's where the legacy is going to be. Not only being a hell of a player, it was a good career, really good career. I'm not sure it was great, but that some of these kids that decide to stay home have a chance to put up numbers and continue to develop and be a first-round pick.
And how many 17-year-olds really put their money where their mouth is, right? Because when he committed to Mizzou, he said he wanted to start a tradition. He wanted to be a local guy that stayed home, stayed at Mizzou, and then got local kids to come there. He didn't get all the local kids to come there, but he got a lot of people to come to Mizzou and says he's going to continue to do that. I have no reason to believe he isn't. I am with you, Dan, though. I get using him as a decoy, but he's such a dynamic performer. I would have made an effort as a coaching staff to get the ball in his hands a certain amount of times per game, a dozen times per game. As a receiver, it's a little bit different, but like you say, with the jet sweeps and with the smoke screens and things like that, I think Mizzou could have done a better job, especially down the stretch here, of getting the ball into his hands. I don't know if he's compromised health-wise or anything like that, but I remember Mike Martz always talked about wanting to get the ball into Marshall Faulk's hands at least 18 times a game. That was the magic number. I would think 12 for a guy like Burden in college would have been a pretty good number. That being said, in the last 2 years, they've gone 20-5. So the results are pretty good. And the games that they did lose, I mean, they lost to Georgia and LSU last year, and Luther Burden could have scored 4 touchdowns, and they weren't. Well, they were close. It was defense that caused them to lose that LSU game last year, and then you get blown out twice this year, and then you just can't tackle against South Carolina. So I don't know that getting the ball into Burden's hands more and less would have made much of a difference.
All right, college football playoff is out. Alabama in. Not surprised, are you? I figured this was one way or another. They're going to find Alabama a place in the college football playoff, so it doesn't surprise me.
Dan, here's the way I look at this. If we get to that round of 8 that Alabama will be in, they'll probably be at the bottom. In that first round game, what's Vegas going to think? I think Vegas is going to favor Alabama, whoever they play in that first round. Maybe that's the way the committee should do it is, okay, who would Vegas take? And all due respect to South Carolina and Clemson if they make it, or the other 3-loss teams, Miami fell out. Who would be favored to get between Alabama and Miami? Alabama would. So I don't think it's unreasonable that the committee puts a 3-loss Alabama team where they are, because sure, they lost to a couple of 6-6 teams, but I still think, and this committee uses the eye test. The eye test still shows me that in that first round, the first 8 teams, Alabama can compete with any of those guys.
Do you even care if Mizzou goes to a decent bowl, good bowl, great bowl? Luther Burden has already opted out. Mm-hmm. You're going to see opt-outs all over the place in college football. And I don't blame the kids for doing that to make sure that they stay healthy for the upcoming draft or whatever they want to do. But does it really matter to you? I mean, because the season, you think about it, Randy, we talked about it a lot. Going into the season, you thought Texas A&M at Texas A&M would be a really tough win, but winnable game. Mm-hmm. You thought they'd be undefeated going into Alabama. You thought they could beat South Carolina, which they nearly did. I don't think it's I don't know how to encompass the whole season. I think it was good, wasn't great, and maybe a little disappointing for the diehard fan that expected more out of Mizzou.
Well, I'll start with this. I don't think Mizzou yet is a tier 1 program. And by the way, their number 1 recruit, a 5-star recruit, and as we speak today is recruiting signing day, and they lost their big tackle from Texas. He went to Texas A&M for a huge NIL deal. Think about this, though, Dan, and I agree with you. It wasn't what we expected. But if somebody makes 1 tackle against South Carolina, Mizzou is sitting there at 10-2. They're in that conversation about what we're talking about. Alabama,
exactly.
Ole Miss. Ole Miss has 3 losses. If they're 10-2 and South Carolina is 9-3, then Mizzou is in conversation to be number 11, 12, 13, 14. But to the question about what bowl to go to, back in the day when I would have been inclined to go to a bowl, I would have cared. Now I don't. Now it's just a TV show. There are certainly more prestigious bowls, but players don't care about that anymore. Players care about NIL and jerseys and winning. And so I think it's great for the fans. If most fans would prefer Tampa, that'd be great. Most fans would prefer Vegas, that'd be great. I hope Mizzou fans don't have to go back to Houston for the Texas Bowl again. But it doesn't matter to me at all what bowl they go to. I'll watch it, though. I'll watch what bowl they play.
I'll watch it too. College basketball, Mizzou with a huge win last night. I mean, they shot about 100% in the second half. It was unbelievable how efficient they were offensively. SLU has gotten off to a so-so start. I think expectations are so high because of Josh Schertz and because of the young man that they brought in. And you better answer that phone, Randy. I mean, we're on the Scoop Sports Network, so make sure you answer that phone.
It's been answered.
Was that a hardline phone?
We have a landline. Yeah, how about that?
Are you kidding me? It's time to move on.
Yeah, we're the ones.
So just your thoughts on how the season has gotten going. I'll look at it this way. Dennis Gates, they got a tough December, highlighted by the bragging rights game. Mm-hmm. I thought SLU it's been time will tell with that. It's going to take a little time with the new faces they have coming in.
And I think that's one of the things with Mizzou, too. This is basically a new team that Dennis Gates has. And he's in a great spot, using November and December basically to meld the group and get them to play as a unit. And Schertz obviously is doing the same thing. He's only got 3 players back from last year, and he's got his 2 guys from Indiana State. But he didn't have Avila for the first few games of the season after he got hurt. I think both of these programs are works in progress right now, but both have talent. And I think once we get into conference play, more so for SLU, because I think the A-10 is going to be much easier to traverse than the SEC. But I think once we get into conference play, I think these teams can get better and better. I don't know that Mizzou has the talent to play with the rest of the SEC yet. I think they need a couple more things. I think they need the big man, obviously, to reach his potential. But I do think that SLU has the potential physically to play within the A-10, and it's a matter of just playing a good team game, and like every coach says, play great defense.
All right, buddy. What else is on your mind? Because this is freewheeling. We can do anything we want. You've always got stuff that you need to get off your chest. I'm sitting here throwing out the topics. What else you got?
Dan, I got a couple of things that bother me. Number one is this. All these people that are just going bananas over Kansas City Chiefs losing close games. Should it be a concern that the Chiefs are losing close games? And I'm a Chiefs fan. It doesn't matter to me if they win or lose. But I will say this. Last year at this time, they were 8-4. And nobody was complaining. People started worrying about them when they lost to the Raiders at Christmas time. The Chiefs don't care how much they win by. They just want to win the game. And I have a great video. One time, Patrick Mahomes was playing in the match. He and Kelsey were playing against Josh Allen and somebody else. And Ernie Johnson said, "Hey, did you kind of let them back into this match?" And Mahomes said, Ernie, I give great TV. I don't blow anybody out. I'm great TV, whether it's golf or football. I think that's what Patrick Mahomes is. But that being said, and I think you'll agree with me, we watched these last 3 games that the Buffalo Bills have played, and they have been absolutely dominant. I hope for all of our friends that are Bills fans, I hope this is the year. It's unbelievable to me that there are so many NFL teams that have never won a Super Bowl, and they and the Vikings have each been to 4 and never won. I think they both deserve their opportunity to have the Lombardi Trophy in their town.
Yeah, there's a few teams that stand out to me, and that would be certainly the Bills and what they did. And I love watching snow games. I love watching snow games. That was so much fun to watch on Sunday Night Football. The Flames have calmed down a little bit on Nick Sirianni. That is something that I don't think a lot of people are talking about. What's going on in the NFC? The fact is that San Francisco is compromised with injuries. McCaffrey being out, they're just not the same team that they were a year ago. The Chiefs are the Chiefs. They find a way to win, and it sets up to be a fun postseason. I think the other team that you have to look at right now, the Steelers, going into Baltimore and what they did. Those are things that stand out to me. And Mike Tomlin, I don't think has ever been the coach of the year in the National Football League. I think I'm correct on that.
I think so,
It's been, 16, 17, 18 years, whatever he's been doing this. He's unbelievable. They've never had a losing season, and they find a way to win.
And when you think, Dan, about what Tomlin was able to do when he had Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell on his team, the turmoil that he had worked through, and keep it quiet with that organization. He's a great X's and O's guy. He's a great personal guy, too. He's just a great manager of people. And I want to go back to the 49ers. You remember in 2004, the Rams went 8-8, and Marshall Faulk got hurt, and Orlando Pace was dinged up, and Aeneas Williams got hurt, and Tom Newton got hurt. And obviously at that time, Kurt Warner was already gone. Isaac and Torrey were still there, but you could kind of feel the window closed on the greatest show on turf in 04. I feel the same way about the 49ers right now. With McCaffrey's injury, and you wonder if he ever come back from Achilles injuries, Brandon Ayuk being out, Trent Williams being 36 and being hurt, Purdy with the banged up shoulder, a free agency that's coming. They probably won't keep Deebo Samuel around. That was a great run by the 49ers, and that shows how agile it is and how lucky we were here in St. Louis. The greatest show on turf won in '99, because I think there were probably 3 years where the 49ers were, if not the best team in the NFL, certainly the best team in the NFC, and they lost a couple of close Super Bowls. And I think the window is closed on them in terms of this group winning a Super Bowl.
All right, what else you got to get off your chest? I know you could talk sports for like 5 hours, so you'll probably be heading over to the Fenton Bar and Grill and talking to everybody over there, I'm sure. So
yeah, we always talk. Yeah, we always talk sports over at the Fenton Bar and Grill. There's no doubt about that. The other thing I find interesting, Dan, is we talked a little bit about Arenado earlier, and I want to get your take on this, because we talk about what the Cardinals are doing in terms of committing to the young kids, and they're rebuilding their system. They've announced now, or they're about to announce, according to Katie Wu, a new farm director and a new director of performance, and they're going to restock and backfill their minor league construction situation. I don't know what to make of the 2025 Cardinals. I kind of think they're pretty close to a 500 team. Might come down to how good the starting pitching. They're going to count on Matt, Michaelis, and Matz. It might come down to that. But last year, a lot of people thought they would be really good, and they wound up winning 83 games. This year, a lot of people think they're going to be really bad, and I think they're capable of winning 83 games. I think that changes a little bit if Arenado isn't here, but I think there's enough good players on this team that they can be right around 500.
I don't think people talk enough about whether Ryan Helsley stays or goes. Mm-hmm. Now, you can have, and we've seen this time and again in baseball, you can have someone come out of a bullpen, or even a starter turns into a closer, or Luke Weaver arrives on the scene and you catch lightning in a bottle. That stuff does happen. But if you get rid of Ryan Helsley, which is probably on the table, it's certainly an option that they have at this point. And now they could hold on to him until the All-Star or until the trade deadline, and still the value would probably be high as long as he's not injured and he's still putting up numbers, which there's no reason to think that he wouldn't. But if he's not there at the back end of games, you always have to have a closer. Mm-hmm. And especially with a team that has a very thin margin to win games, and their margin of error will be slim. You know what I mean? And so you got to have that guy that you feel is pretty automatic at the back end of games. So if Arenado isn't here, yeah, that's a blow. No question mm-hmm. about it. Goldie not here, I think that's a blow too, because you're not sure what you're going to get out of a young guy that's playing first base. I also think that it gets overlooked what he means defensively for this team. He saved mm-hmm. a lot of runs and made, the shortstop Mason Wynn look pretty good with a lot of picks over at first base. But in the back end of games, if you don't have a closer, if you don't have Ryan Helsley and a lockdown guy, that's dicey, and that's where you're going to, that 5 to 10 wins that could swing one way or another can help you get to that 500 marker, even a little bit better.
You need to have a guy at the beginning of the season, no doubt about it. But then, and I'm not an analytics guy, as you know, but the analytics people say, hey, you can find a closer anywhere. And they aren't wrong. When we look at some of these Cardinals World Series teams under Tony La Russa, where 06, it was Isbell really got hurt, and then it wound up being Adam Wainwright. Or you look at 2011, where it was Salas, and then at the end, it wound up being Mott. Or 2013, it was Mujica, and then wound up being Trevor Rosenthal. It's easy to find a closer, but the key is you can't have, for a team like this, you can't have that lull that you're talking about, where you go a couple of weeks and you're blowing saves right and left. They need to have somebody that's reliable from the start of the season on with this particular group.
Yep, I'm 100% with you. And, those tickets have gone on sale. I'd be curious to know how ticket sales, the fans have responded. Individual individual tickets are on sale now. So, and I think that's the earliest they've done that, Randy. I'm not mm-hmm. sure. It's the earliest in quite some time, I believe.
Right.
But we'll see what the response of the fans is like. The winter warm-up right around the corner, all those things. It's not that far away.
So I was talking to a Cardinal executive about this just the other day, and they expect that their season ticket renewal, and the deadline hasn't hit yet, but it's pacing towards about 80%. When they are in a World Series or win a World Series, it's around 90. In a typical season, they're 85, 88%. So 80 in terms of season ticket renewals will be a drop-off, but it won't be devastating to them. The other thing the Cardinals want to do is revise the way they deal with brokers. Brokers are scalpers, and they make their money on the back end. But the Cardinals want to have an embarrassing situation like they had last year, where tickets are on StubHub literally for $0. So the Cardinals do work deals with their official secondary market partners, and they want to change the way that business works so that there is less supply and hopefully for them more demand.
All right, my man. Always fun to catch up with you, and thanks for doing this. And we'll do it a bunch. I love these. These are fun.
Danny, you're the best. Thank you. Had a great time, and we'll do it soon. And happy holidays to everybody.
That's Randy. I'm Dan. This is the Scoop Sports Network.